Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I want to start by recognizing that we're meeting on the lands of the Duwamish, Suquamish, and Muckleshoot Nations and other Coast Salish peoples, past and present. And everyone here at Jack Straw, staff, board, artists, acknowledge that we're living, creating, working, and playing on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle and the Salish Sea, and we honor them and the land itself with deep gratitude. Thank you for being here. My name is Levi. I work here at Jack Straw. I manage the artist residency programs, one of which is the Jack Straw Writers Program. We're here on the second night of our May reading series. Thank you for joining us, whether you're here or live streaming or watching this in the far distant future on the internet or listening to it. I don't know, I could go on. But a few program notes. Nisi, our beloved curator, Nisi Shawl, had to go through a suddenly mandated medical procedure this morning. They're fine, but we're not able to be here tonight to host. So Josh Griffin has kindly offered to take over hosting duties for tonight. If you missed his reading last week, as in the first reading of the May reading series, you should definitely check it out on that archived stream, because it was great, and I hope you'll come back next week. This is kind of the beginning of the public part of the writers program. So from here, the writers will have various public readings throughout the community. There's a reading at Folk Life on the Sunday. I can't keep all of the numbers in my head, but the Sunday of Folk Life in the evening around 5:30 at the Center Theater. I think it's like 6 of you all will be reading. It should be pretty cool. And we also have a music showcase the night before on the Saturday, and then other stuff coming this summer and fall. And we'll have podcasts that start going out in the summer with these readings and the recorded interviews with Nisi and the writers. And I also want to thank the funders who make this program possible and our other artist programs, City of Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, For Culture, Washington State Arts Commission, Arts Fund, Rainier Foundation, and of course individual contributors. Thank you if anybody gave during Give Big. We really appreciate it. Give Big is weird because they say it's 2 days, but actually, like, you can give for a week before it, and then actually it still goes through the whole month of May. So you could still do it now, just saying. But just your being here is a gift enough, and thank you for all of the contributions of your time and your attention. With that, I will hand it over to our, the other program note is that our first reader is due to tornadoes stuck in Georgia. So really just adding to the drama and the kind of dystopian feel of the whole thing, but we're still excited to have her here. So those are the 2 program notes for tonight. But welcome, Josh. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for choosing to be here. As I said last time, you could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here. So thank you. Hope you all had a good week. I feel like I'm starting a comedy bit, honestly. But the weather's nice. Chose to be here. So just thank you. First up we have, and I want to say too, actually, Nisi mentioned last time around that there's intentionality in the way in which they chose to curate these sessions. And they spoke to that with the 4 of us, how we read ours. So maybe while you sit and you take in what each person has to say, think of what the through line means to you and the connection and how it all intersects one another. First up, we have E.J. Batiste. E.J. is a professional writer, poet, artist, award-winning dramatist, originally from Radford, North Carolina. She has a bachelor's of science degree in psychology from the University of North Carolina, Pembroke, and a master's of fine arts degree in creative writing from Queen's University of Charlotte. EJ's work often reflects upon her her lived experience as a Black woman from the South, a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, a social observer, and her knowledge of psychology. She has worked in the literary community in several capacities, including art director of Southern Review of Books, co-chair of Queen's University of Charlotte MFA in Creative Writing Professional Development Weekend, and poetry editor of another Chicago magazine. To date, she also has one stage play produced and another forthcoming. Her writing and artwork have appeared in various literary publications. And with that, I give you EJ.
Thank you so much, Paul. Okay, my first poem is called I'll Tell You What It Is. It is on Curator Truth's on women's rights speech, better known as the Ain't I Woman speech, though that phrase added years later, I never partied. Ain't in it. But it was deemed necessary to make it sound like a speech delivered in some enslaved vernacular. The goal, it seems, was to water it down, a drink too strong for their taste. Ain't in it. Speaking only Dutch until almost 10, and residing in New York, wouldn't have resulted in the southern drawl of ain't. Yet in childhood, never known the speech by any other name but the refrain. Ain't in it. But the added ain't can't diminish the educated, sophisticated intellectuals raised with ain't in their vocabularies. Oh, how they downplay the impact of this woman moving in purpose. Dumb it down, make her words sound less competent. They thought the message would diminish, yet her real words came soaring through. Ain't in it. Come and learn history, rock with conceptions. Ain't it a shame? My next poem is called Somebody Prayed for Me. I ran to the well, it touched my soul. I ran to the well ran cold. I ran to the well, I couldn't control. I ran to the well made me whole. Next I have The Instinct is Too High. Sitting on the sidewalk at twilight, wind whipping through my hair, unruly, I hum a melody, a wish to be loved tomorrow. Oh, beloved, for the wind knew better, the melody cast off, never meeting her ear. Next is called I Shall. I shall walk in the ethereal energy that denied myself. That same energy they scoffed at and told me to tone down. I shall move with the melody tattooed on my soul and will shrug off those judgmental daggers aimed straight at my abdomen. For I'm queen of my own making, and yet, still heir to the throne. I glide in grace. Goddess, 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 I shall be. My next poem is called Exotic. She called me exotic, and I said thank you, because I knew she meant it as a compliment. She was attempting to be encouraging, to tell me that I was worthy of the opportunity coming my way. So I said thank you. She meant well, and I was flattered momentarily. But then I thought again. I was deemed worthy because I looked exotic, mixed, not fully one color. I was worthy because I didn't look fully identifiable. Was it ugly truth wrapped in well wishes? I said thank you. She meant well, I think. My next poem is called Pond of Failure. Failure is my favorite sound. It means I'm getting closer. Eliminating doors not meant for me. The slams, a resounding yes to my ears. One step nearer to breakthrough. New doors will open brightly. greeting me with the warmth of home as I reminisce upon my fondest sound. My next poem is called Be Exact. Upon landing back in the United States, instead of the visual signs that adorn the doors of customs sorting American from other, there was a man, a single man, sorting people, judging only by sight. He pointed and guided the masses through sorted doors. I was wondering if he could see my Americanness. I stood there trying to be as American as I could. What does American look like? He gave a rapid glance and neatly motioned me towards the door. I nodded with confidence and stepped through the door, proceeded to the line, only to notice that none of the other passports lined up looked like mine. I was misplaced. I started back towards the door from which I came, nervous to tell the man that his judgment was awry. May never survive the stern warning on the floor stating, do not exit, no re-entry. Fearing loss, a woman with no country. What does an expat look like? As I shuffled towards the door, a couple stood there in confusion. The wife had been placed into the American line, while the husband had been ushered into the same line as I. One look at each other, and we all knew we were American. What does an American look like? Armed with another, I marched over the stern statement with confidence. We told the man that he had placed us in error. He rolled his eyes and shouted, you guys, you need to tell me if you're American. He motioned us to the correct line. At the desk, the immigration officer said, welcome back. I felt American. My next poem is called Yellow. Strong bottles of Perrier litter the floor. Perrier doesn't pass this fancy, but on a budget. The day dawns bright and shiny. I rise bright and shining from my expensive love. Lust, really. Lust in motions. We keep going through the motions. We know the lines, the moves, we dance in double entendres and contradictories. Your words, honey sweet, tangy with brown orange rinds, your eyes dilated, fixated on my brown thighs, hints of yellow in both my brown thighs and your brown eyes. Your lips lie. A resoluteness shall be your death, or at least a bad stomachache. For you can't seem to decide what you want of me, but know that you want me. And my brown thighs, and my light eyes, and my curved lips, and hips that your fingertips refuse to lose. Feelings as I, a glittering canary diamond, and you, a stranger peering in from a shop window, wondering if you could afford for this thing to fit the shape of you. I stare back at those brown eyes, full lips, manicured fingertips, and melt into your chocolate grip. We vibe in tandem, yet petal apart. Our picture a gradient of auburns and butterscotch, yellow, the sun high. I arise. You turn to look at me. Our eyes meet. I smile and say farewell, hoping the daylight keeps me warm in the shade of your indecision. My second to last poem is called Carolina Nights. Found me on a cool Carolina night, lights dim to the deep nocturnal sky that refuses to sleep, but stares back at me, meditative peace. On my legs dangle off the cedar porch's old worn edge, and I look up to see vibrant shining stars, somehow optimistically twinkling, as if they haven't already tasted death. A record player twice my age clicks on. The authentic tenor of the vinyl's grooves plays me out into a dusty distance, and I hum along to an old Whitney song. The lightning bugs and the season's fast mosquitoes flitting through the blowing breeze. I say to no one but the swaying pine trees, "So you want to dance?" And my last poem is called The Do's and Don'ts. It is inspired by the Zora Neale Hurston quote, "If you are silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it." Don't kneel on a football field during the national anthem. Don't peacefully march down the street. Don't wear shirts that read, "I can't breathe." Don't burn things down to send a message. Don't voice your concerns on television, online, or on any platform. Don't wear pins on your lapel that represent your cause. 2. Ignore the problems like they don't exist. Do agree when racists say that we are the problem. 2. Let others decide how we respond to oppression. Do push down all your pain and tears. Do stay in the traffic field for us. Do go docile into the night. Don't be surprised when they kill you and claim that you liked it. And that's my last poem.
So thank you, EJ. Let's give her EJ a round of applause again. And I would encourage you to do, because you're duty bound. Because if not, the don't will continue to happen. Next up, we have Mary Pan. Mary Pan is a writer, super high up, and physician with a background in global health and narrative medicine. Her work has appeared in Fourth Gen, creative nonfiction, McSweeney's, and elsewhere. She has been selected for work retreats and residencies with Tin House, Hedgebrook, Kenyon Review, and Centrum, and is a Harvard Medicine and Media alum. The recipient of a 2019 Artist Trust Grants with Artist Projects Literary Award, and was the runner-up of a AWP's 2020 Kurt Brown Prize for creative nonfiction. She is currently working on a memoir of lyrical essays about caregiving, caretaking, and retrospective becoming. Clap it up.
Thank you. And yes, I'm going to need this lower. Thanks. Thanks everyone for coming out on this beautiful evening. I also wanted to thank Nisi and the rest of my cohort, words and work I've been really inspired by. And especially Levi and everyone here at Jack Straw also. I'm going to read 3 short pieces, 2 of which appear in the anthology, and all of them are found in my memoir and lyrical essays about caregiving, this idea of metanosis, which is basically a shifting identity after a diagnosis is made, and retrospective becoming. Found. A hospital gown hung loosely over his body as he pushed me aside in the urgent care waiting room and ran out onto the street. Before that, I stood between him and the sliding glass doors. The patients sat in cushioned chairs, waiting to be called back with their persistent palpitations, with their twisted knees. They stared at us, expectant. Before that, he asked the security guard stationed just outside his room if they could do anything if he decided to leave. The guard said nothing, only looked up from scrolling his phone. Before that, my husband told me, "I'll wait until 10 p.m., then I'm out of here." Before that, I poked my head out into the hallway and grabbed a nurse, begging her to get my husband some Ativan. I could tell he was getting more agitated with the long wait, nearly 6 hours. She looked down at me before she said, "I'll see what I can do, but it might be a while." I understood. I was dismissed. Before that, I sat on a folding chair I had moved into a gap of the exam room doorway. My breast pump and half-eaten teriyaki takeout boxes were stuffed under my chair. I pressed my purse and glass bottles of root beer against my chest. My husband was lying on the exam table, arm draped over his forehead. Before that, he pulled my iPhone cord out of his sock. "What are you doing?" I asked, puzzled at first, then unfolding alarm. "Nothing, just playing around," he said. "There's nothing to do here. It's boring." He gestured to the empty exam room, devoid of any months-old People magazines, no public health posters on the walls, drawers lacking even a tongue depressor or Band-Aid. He was right. It was boring, empty for a reason. Before that, we sat in the spare exam room, me shoveling tofu yakisoba into my dry mouth. I kept offering him food, chicken gyoza and root beer, his favorite. He refused with a low grunt, turned his face away from me toward the blank wall. Before that, he shuffled in his foam-bottom socks from the bathroom across the hall, shoulder to shoulder with the security guard. Before that, I returned from grabbing dinner to find an empty exam room. My throat constricted with a familiar refrain as I flailed around, searching for him, looking for anyone. Before that, I heard my stomach rumble, though it didn't feel like hunger, more like an empty reservoir that needed to be filled. I told myself I should probably eat. I grabbed my wallet and crossed the street to teriyaki madness. Before that, the social worker came to tell us she was still working on finding him a hospital bed, but both the University of Washington and Harborview were full. He might need to be placed somewhere farther away, like Tacoma or Olympia. "What about Overlake?" we said in near unison, the place he was hospitalized 2 months prior, with the full-wall murals of pastoral scenes with the fancy cheese plates. "Overlake? Oh, Overlake. I haven't tried there yet. I'll call them now." She must be new. Another time, another situation, we might have looked at each other and laughed. Before that, I pulled the nursing cover over my head, assembled the plastic pieces of the pumping apparatus with the automaticity of a person who had done this every few hours for many months with 3 babies over the last 5 years. Who could do this in the days of near sleep, on a packed airplane, in a hotel bathroom at a medical conference. The familiar whir and squeeze as the machine beat with a regular cadence. No milk came. Before that, I burst into the exam room where the social worker sat with my husband, quizzing him about his medical history, a story he had already told 5 times that day. Before that, he called me on my cell phone as I paced in the basement of our home. He told me he was sorry he ran away from the clinic visit with the doctor. He needed help. I was so relieved. He was found. I rushed out to meet him in urgent care. Valentine's Day. I like the idea that St. Valentine was both a priest and a physician, an amalgam of a person or persons who wrote letters to his jailer's daughter and healed her from blindness. Aren't we all a composite of different identities? None of us either or, but ultimately both and? St. Valentine is named for one or two Christian martyrs and is the patron saint of not only lovers, but also intervenes in beekeeping, epilepsy, and the plague. At first, this seems an odd collection. On greater consideration, though, each is fitting for a priest and a physician. Practitioners of healing and faith, attempting to predict the future, that which may strike or dissolve at any moment, but always leave scars in its wake. On Valentine's Day 2017, my husband lay shackled to an emergency department gurney, gown wrinkled, hospital socks stained with the dirt of the city sidewalks he escaped to the night before. Each ankle and one wrist were restrained, metal handcuffs locked to the gurney. Only his right hand was free. He used it to attempt to scoop soup from a styrofoam cup as I hovered in the doorway. He noticed me and leaned up a bit on his free arm, his face crumpled like his patient gown, faded from wear. I didn't know who I would meet as I arrived. The exchange of valentines and amorous affection mid-February is attributed to Chaucer, who wrote a poem around 1375 that links love with St. Valentine's feast day. He wrote in Parliament of Fowls about the common belief that birds chose their mates on February 14th, christening it St. Valentine's Day. Apparently, Chaucer was in the habit of inventing historical contexts for literary purposes. It makes one wonder what pairings and traditions are constructs of mere conjuring. "Happy Valentine's Day," my husband said, one side of his lips curled in a tentative smile. I lingered in the doorway, unsure if I should smile back. "Some Valentine's Day, huh?" he continued as he lifted his left arm, handcuffed to the metal side rail. It took my brain a minute to register, to accept. He was making a joke. Although St. Valentine is still recognized as a saint, he was removed from the Roman Catholic calendar in 1969 because of the lack of verifiable information about him. When we first met in college, my husband's sense of humor was one of the things that attracted me most to him. I'm serious, driven, but need a bit of sarcasm, wit, playful banter with a partner to make me feel wholly myself. Nearly 20 years later, I began to question everything about the man I married. Was his humor a way of masking his depression, his over-the-top and admirable enthusiasm for various work and personal projects signs of hypomania? How could I be tethered to this person for over a decade and not suspect this illness was lurking? Or maybe I just didn't want to see, kept myself blinded for a reason. One legend about St. Valentine is that he officiated marriages for young men in defiance of the emperor, who deemed them better soldiers if left unattached. Without the trappings of a wife and family, of love, they could fight and die for the empire more efficiently. 6 years after my husband's hospitalizations for severe depression, suicidality, and hypomania, our 9-year-old son asked me where Valentine's Day came from. I mumbled something about Valentine being a saint. He had some connection to love and people coming together, but I was making stuff up in the way parents do when they're asked questions by their children they don't really know the answer to. Valentine is a figment of our collective imagination. He's a legend we embrace in order to cling to others, even if that other can never be truly known. Visiting hours. I struggle with the glass doors, baby strapped in the stroller, my toddler and kindergartner in tow. We enter into the wide lobby, stroll forward to check in. It could be a dentist's office, a downtown building. It's busy, evening visiting hours. We wait in beige chairs, coffee table reading limited to an old newspaper. My phone doesn't work here, and the children are restless. I wonder if they can sense my unease, unsure if I've done the right thing in bringing them to this place. A man steps out from the heavy steel doors. I think he calls my husband's name. We're ready for you. Someone holds the door this time as I push the stroller through, into a long hallway lined with framed photos of physicians in white coats and clean neckties. Most of them are white, are men. A section of the current psychiatrists is an exception. Women and minorities predominate. I wonder which one is treating my husband, what she thinks of him. I wonder if she goes home and tells her own partner, I have this patient. He had a hypomanic episode, triggered by an antidepressant, ran away in nothing but a hospital gown, 3 kids at home. Our escort takes a ring of keys from his pocket to unlock the door. We walk through an outdoor courtyard. The entire walkway is enclosed by barbed wire. I look to the small grassy area. This must be where they exercise, march like inmates. I picture them stomping on the wet grass. We walk down another hallway and pass through another locked door, this time into a cafeteria. Tables are lined up, and a drink dispenser and vending machine are pushed against one wall. We could be in any school cafeteria. A nursing assistant walks up to me. They're running a bit late. He'll be here soon. I'll just be observing, taking notes during the visit, sitting right over there. I don't ask why she's taking notes, what they're for, what they mean, what she's observing. The door opens and he's the first patient through, wearing jeans, a navy sweater, Crocs, shuffling on the floor. I hardly recognize him, though I saw him just the day before. He's bearded, lines around his eyes droop. His lips are curled in an effortful smile. Daddy! They run into his arms, into his kisses. They collide right in front of the nurse observer. She smiles and makes a note on her goldenrod paper. My lips are a thin line of apprehension. I hold the baby on my protruding right hip. He barely glances at me, looks away quickly, back to his children, back to his light. The space between us, occupied with 4-point restraints and suicide threats, and all the unfiltered things he confessed to me that night of depression, laced with psychosis, fueled by cannabis. It may never recover. We both know this and yet hope for something salvageable. I brought you coloring sheets. He produces black and white drawings of foxes and woodland scenes. I don't have many crayons. He looks apologetic. The children fight over the drawings. They're still children, still unreasonable, still exasperating. He's forgotten. He grabs the baby from the stroller, tosses her up in the air, nibbles her cheek, swoons over her thick thighs. The nurse observer is charmed, makes notes on her paper. I'm suddenly irritated, defensive of our offspring, used as pawns. Look, he's so well. I, suddenly alone in a house with 3 young children, fearing irrationality sneaking up on me in the dark, sleep with a baseball bat under my pillow at night. I'll continue to do so after he returns home. I am now always terrified, as only the caregiver of someone who yearned for death can be. He chats with me in code over the children as they color. Hopefully I'll be out in a couple of days. He glances at the observer. His words make me think of a jail, another place people are locked away involuntarily. I scan the tidy cafeteria, spot a coffee machine perched against the wall. I am reminded of a retreat center, watered-down juice dispensers and gummy sausages. This place is nondescript, and yet so singular, a psychiatric hospital. I am disoriented. Time's up. The observer interjects, approaching our family. We only had an hour. My 5-year-old starts crying. Why can't you come home, Daddy? She wails. I want to wail too. Instead, I scoop up the baby, pry the eldest from her father. She wipes her tears as he apologizes. I'll be home soon. His laceless shoes squeak as he's ushered out the heavy door, turns to head down the long hallway.
Thank you. Next up, we have Becca Rose Hall. Her writes novels, essays, and poems. She studied English at Stanford and holds a master's in environmental writing from the University of Montana. Her writing has been supported by various publications and communities of writers. She has attended Bread Loaf and Swanee. She was also the Writers Lighthouse 2019 Emerging Fiction Fellow. Her work has appeared recently in Third Coast, Pacifica Literary Review, and Orion, where her essays made the best of 2020. She's the founder and the director of Frog Hollow School, a children's writing program, and lives here, in her hometown of Seattle with her daughter and their dog. Her work circles around the ideas of utopia and chosen family and is deeply steeped in the Pacific Northwest. She is currently seeking representation for a novel set in the musical scene of Olympia in the 1990s.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Levi and Nisi, and everyone at Jackstraw. I've actually applied for Jackstraw 8 times, and I feel really honored to be here and honored to be in this particular cohort of writers, and I don't know, it feels good. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do in October when I usually apply to Jackstraw. So I'm going to read today what's, I guess, probably going to be the first chapter of a novel that I'm just starting that's mostly set in the town of Home out on the Kitsap Peninsula, which started as an anarchist colony, and part of the novel's now and part in the turn of the century. So this excerpt's called Summer Thinking. It's raining the whole drive from Seattle out to Home, out to the cabin. I just have a tote bag with some water and snacks, just have my raincoat. But I'm just going to be here for the day, that's all. Put the shit into the hefty bags, deep clean, come back next weekend with Suzanne, see what she can list it for, get her done. When Dad's lawyer called, I was in the pissed off stage of what I guess might count as grief. What an absurd phrase, Dad's lawyer. But anyway, the man exists and he called. Dad left me the cabin, and my first thought was, really? I have to deal with that shit? It's like, in what world does a microscopic sperm, 4 years of peripheral engagement, Sunday phone calls, and a week every summer, give me an obligation to deal with the detritus of his life? But here I am. Ben would have hired it out, but Ben has disposable income and is 2,000 miles away. I park in the mud called the driveway. I walk up to the cabin. I say cabin, but it's not a cabin. A small, bland house. Concrete porch with metal railings, vinyl siding in a color that once was white, non-functional green shutters, AstroTurf doormat, big carport out back full of wood. An old person's house. That old person somehow was my dad. The door sticks when I finally get it open, and a sad feeling twists in my belly. How far my dad must have sunk not to fix the sagging hinges. The house smells like old wood, mustiness, and wood smoke, a hint of bacon, coffee, and something else I can't place. Someone has drawn the drapes so the whole place feels claustrophobic and dim, and I don't close the door behind me. He died in this house. this room even, and suddenly I know that this is the unnameable thing I'm smelling, although I didn't know the smell before. A sweet shit smell. I'm throwing open the drapes, the windows, rain be damned, the fresh, clean rain. But still, there, the sagging, oversized, beige, lazy boy, champion of 90s entertainment rooms, hulking all weird in the turn-of-the-century-sized space. That was the spot. Died reading, the neighbor said. It has to go. I push, wrestle, drag, shove, swear, get the chair out the door, onto the porch, down the steps, muddy, who cares, to the edge of the street, then second-guessing, who'd want a chair a guy died in, back into the yard where it tips over and lies in the grass. I turned back to the cabin, the house, but we'd always called it the cabin. Cabin meant homestead. It meant lineage, the real colonial deal. We lived here, Mom, Dad, Ben, and me. I remember making mud pies under the roadie by the back door. I remember when the mice got into the flour and multiplied like they were God's chosen children, and my dad trapped them with peanut butter, and the cat caught them and left them as presents in obscure places, like in between the wool army blankets we slept under, and we found them by the smell. I remember the mice and the mud and Mom saying, "Put your clothes on, we're going to town," meaning Gig Harbor, maybe Tacoma. Ben would remember more. He was 7 when they split, and I was 4. I remember they let me hammer the nails back into the floorboards. I remember catching crabs under the beach rocks, the little ones that could fit on a quarter, green and yellow and tan. We dug clams, too, and Mom made soup with potatoes, those big sacks of russet potatoes we lived on. I liked to clack the clam shells like castanets. I'd seen a flamenco dancer on someone's TV, and nothing, not even owning my own Barbie, seemed more exotic. Ben liked to clack them, too, until Dad called him a sissy. You know, I never saw my dad even fry an egg as a kid. Never saw him wash anything or clean anything. It was all motors and wood, work that paid, or sitting on the back step shirtless in those dirty jeans, his mariner's cap holding down his unruly brown hair, whittling wooden bears and orcas to sell to the summer people at the general store. This was being radical, the Arnie version. Dodging taxes, smoking weed, leaving the dishes to the woman. I don't blame my mom for leaving him in the 70s long, long behind. But the smell? When I first came into the cabin, the smell, the first smell before the dead smell, and the light, how it comes so stark through the one window in the front room but doesn't reach the corners. It hit me so primally, nostalgic and terrifying, like I was a happy little girl in a calico dress growing up on top of landmines. It's creepy. The whole cabin is creepy. Maybe it's just the lingering presence of my dad sitting in here in the half dark, reading his philosophy, cleaning his gun. Maybe it's him being dead. Walking back in, I can hear him telling me some summer, maybe every summer, when I was there for my week of fishing and spam and instruction in the world, according to Arnie, this is home. You will always belong here, no matter what dumbass drone city your mother hauls you off to. Home. Meaning this grandly named Podunk beach town, was something special, he always said. It began as home colony, a one-time anarchist utopia scratched out of stolen shoreline by my great-grandmother and her fellow radical settlers. Could you be both radical and a settler? They'd come here, to this lobe of land on the edge of the continent, to make a place that they could do what they wanted and have some breathing room from the class struggle or capitalism or whatever. It's different here, my dad said. The dreams in the land, in the fruit trees, in the bay. It's in people reading and thinking with their own heads, living true. Real freedom, the way people were meant to really live. We have to carry it on. Whatever you say, Arnie. I don't want it. I start with the clothes in the hall closet. Goodwill, trash, Goodwill, trash. A couple of flannels Althea will think are cool. The 90s are in, and so is dressing like a grandpa when you're 12. A blue and red Pendleton I'd wear camping. A green one that will look good with Matt's eyes, if, that is, he doesn't find wearing his father-in-law's shirt too Freudian. Arnie's mariner's cap. That's the first real derailment. A 40-year-old ball cap, grimy and frayed and probably a health hazard, slamming into my heart. I stop with the clothes and go into the kitchen. Half the dishes are cracked or chipped. The few that aren't, I put in the Goodwill bag. There's a decent cast iron, so I keep that. Not much else. I should do the desk, deal with any stray bills. First, coffee. I pick up the grimy kettle, shake it. It sloshes. I dump it out, refill it, strike a match for the stove. All these years and still the same stove. I rub the pad of my left index finger, its smooth burn scar. Now you know what hot means, Arnie'd said. Right after he'd said, go ahead, touch the stove. This stove. Mom was so mad about that one. How else does a kid learn, he'd ask. They don't understand concepts. They only have experiences. She had to experience hot or she won't be careful. You tell that to CPS, my God, Arnie. I guess he was right. I didn't understand concepts. But I remember the whole big-worded conversation. Or do I only remember my mom's retelling of it? I remember the pain, and my dad holding my finger under running water, putting a bandage on it. How do we ever know what happened with only memories to tell us? Photos and videos. Is that what we're trying to do these days? Surveil our lives so completely there are no ambiguities, only one official story? Anyway, a photo might show what happened, but it doesn't say what it means. The kettle boils. I open the cupboard. Folger's can right where I knew you'd be. With coffee, badly brewed and black and bitter. I head back to the living room. I work my way through the desk. Bills and letters, the expected clutter. Then, in the top left drawer, under a couple of notebooks with sketches of building projects, I find a thin book, bound simply in green cardstock like it had been bound at the copiers. It has a title in typewriter font on the front, Home, or the Rise and Fall of an Anti-Civilization. That's interesting enough, but it's the author's name that gives me pause, Flora Neely. My great-grandmother, Flora, the homesteader herself. My anarchist great-granny, my long radical roots. I always pulled her out, late nights and at dinner parties. My first real conversation with Matt was about her. Did anarchist children have bedtimes, he wanted to know? And did Emma Goldman really sleep at your great-grandmother's house? Of course she did, and then I lived there, I hooted. Although honestly, all I knew were the thinnest scraps of legend. Flora had raised my grandpa by herself in home colony. There had been a skinny dipping scandal, a bomber, a spy. The colony had turned beach town. She's gotten old and planted roses. My grandpa spoke about her vaguely, my dad with a fever. Clearly there is more to the story. Clearly there is more than one story. My phone buzzes. Matt. Where's Althea's soccer game tomorrow? I'm taking her, right? Why do I have to be tracking this? On a field, I text back like an asshole. Ha ha. Genesee Park, I add, because of course I do know. My brain stashing that kind of dull logistical info about my child's life as if it were of dire importance. The light has left the sky. Like a Polaroid, in reverse it goes, so slow and grainy. I'd only turned the desk lamp on, a little golden fishbowl of comfort. I hadn't meant to be in the house in the dark, though that was summer thinking. The idea a person could go someplace and leave before the light did. I should probably go home. I haven't washed Althea's soccer jersey, but I'm not just going to go home. I see that now. I put my phone down. I stand, stretch, crack the door to my dad's bedroom. Half glass of water on the nightstand, the unmade bed, the pillow still undented. I sit on the edge of the bed and smell the sheets like a lunatic. I can smell him. I can smell him, the living him, skunkiness, coffee, and engine grease. Oh God, that is even as I smell it leaving the world. Why don't we have photographs for smells? You can record a person's voice and face, but not their smell and not their hugs. And I have a sudden, rushing, visceral memory of my dad hugging me, one of my recentish visits. How present he was in that hug. Like it was an ocean we both launched into and drifted on together. Like the hug was, in miniature, an experience of the oneness and flow of the cosmic everything, or however my dad would have put it. Oh God, I should go home. But I kick off my shoes and crawl under the blankets. I'd pollute his smell with my own, destroying it by possessing it. But what else can we do, us who remain living? Thank you.
Thank you. That was dope. Last up, we have Amontaine Aurore. She's a storyteller, playwright, actor, director, producer, and performance artist. She's committed to presenting stories that illuminate multiple perspectives and deepen the understanding of human complexities. Amontaine's plays have been produced in Seattle, New York, Maryland, and abroad. Her solo play, Free Desiree, was named a riot. Okay. One of the best new plays of New York Fringe Festival by Indie Theater Now. Don't call it a riot, I should say. Her play about Seattle activism, from the Seattle Black Panther Party to the WTO protests. Amontaine has received grants from the Artists Trust for Culture, Puffin Foundation, and the Seattle Office of Arts and Culture. She's had writer residencies at the Hedgebrook Writers Retreat on Woodby Island, in the Seattle Public Library. She's currently working on an autobiographical novel.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the Jack Straw Cultural Center, our curator, Nisi Shawl, Levi Fuller, and Josh Griffin for hosting, and the other 2024 Jack Straw cohort. I am writing an autobiographical novel called The Memoirs of Ruby Lovestone. It's set between the years of 1963 and 1974, when my family moved to and lived in an all-white neighborhood in Seattle. It's a coming-of-age story that revolves around my search for my Black identity during the 60s and 70s, which was a time of great cultural, social, and political upheaval and change, and a new rising Black consciousness. This excerpt is called Yes, Ruby, There is a Black Santa Claus, 1969. The Christmas lights had been stuffed in a bag since Christmas last year, and the tangled mess refused to cooperate with Father's thick, frustrated fingers. The wrinkles in Father's forehead grew deep, and tense little curse words seeped out from under his breath until he seemed on the verge of a meltdown. Father was the Grinch who barely tolerated Christmas. He didn't like it or get it. Christmas had become way too materialistic for his taste. The true meaning and spirit is lost, he'd say. So once he purchased gift certificates in bulk, picked out the customary negligee he'd get from Mother every year, and strung the lights across the front of the house, which always meant nearly falling off the ladder and swearing up a blue streak, he figured he'd done his Christmas duty. Mother rushed in on her way to the shopping mall, gulping the last of her coffee and throwing on her brown woolen wrap coat. I dropped another not-so-subtle hint about the powder blue dress with the puffy sleeves at Nordstrom's. 3rd floor, brass plum department, left side front. Please. She didn't seem to hear. She barked out instructions for the day. Ruby, help your father with the lights. Wash out Bear's bowl. Change his water. Vacuum the floor. And you and Portia put up the Santa Claus poster. Oh, yeah. That stupid Santa poster that would go on the outside of our door. He was a super cheesy guy with the usual rosy cheeks and twinkling eyes. I kind of wanted to smash his face. I didn't believe in Santa. Of course, I was 12, but even as a small child, I never believed. For this, my older sisters, trying to relive their childhoods through me, accused me of being cynical, too damn grown, and devoid of magic. Pure slander. I believed in magic. I just didn't believe in bull. And pick up the tree, Mother said as she darted out the door. Pick up the tree, pick up the tree, pick up the tree, pick up the tree. The mantra of the month. Yes, I'd seen the Christmas tree lying on its side, but Bear was just going to knock it over again anyway. Bear, our black lab pit bull mix, was Mother's baby. And Mother was big on making sure Bear felt like a valued member of the family, if not the out-and-out king of the castle. So if we had gifts under the tree, so did Bear. And although Bear's gifts were wrapped and didn't have his name on them, he instinctively knew they were his and insisted on playing with them, stomping his paws on the chew toy to make it squeak, rolling the little rubber ball around, and knocking the tree over at least once a day. It felt like a losing battle, but I stood the tree up and adjusted the bulbs for the umpteenth time. I held the ladder for Father, who managed to get the lights up on the front of the house with only a minor nervous breakdown. Then my sister Portia and I rolled out the giant Santa Claus poster. You know what would be a hoot and a half? Portia asked. We should make Santa black. How do we do that? I've got colored pencils. We can do that? Portia put her hands on her hips. It's 1969 already. Duh, we can do whatever we want. When Portia said that, it was as if the light bulb of truth and justice ignited something in my brain. My hand made a spontaneous fist before thrusting high into the air. Right on, sister, 1969. Like Stokely Carmichael said, it's a new day today. I had never seen a black Santa before ours, and I always wanted to believe we started the trend. When Father saw what we'd done, he remarked that this Santa was more historically accurate. He lit his pipe, settled back on the sofa, and gathered his thoughts. Father was a Black history scholar and knew things most people had never heard. I got ready for little-known events in Black history time. The real St. Nicholas, from which the myth of Santa Claus was derived, was a bishop in the 3rd century. He was a dark-skinned man born in Turkey of wealthy parents who died when he was still very young, and they left him everything. The type of person he was, he cared nothing for material things, so he sold everything he had and gave the money to the poor. Wow, chills. I had not imagined that just because we lived in all-white Bellflower, Black Santa would stir such controversy. The very next week, a discussion broke out in my 7th grade, 3rd period health class, where people said despicable things about Black Santa, as if I wasn't even in the room. Jenny Wanamaker shook back her auburn locks. I mean, I don't personally see anything wrong with it. Like, it's cool, but like my parents, they don't like it. They said Santa Claus is white, and anything else is, like blasphemy? Right. Roy Chesterfield threw up his hand so hard, I thought his arm might careen right out of his socket. My dad said the same thing. He said Santa's white, and that's just how it is. There are traditions. If we go messing with what's normal and natural, it's the beginning of the breakdown of society. Okay, I'd heard just about enough. Excuse me, but why is everything white? The entire class turned to look at me as if I'd suddenly taken off my invisibility cloak. White this, white that. You've got everything tied up. The Tooth Fairy, Goldilocks, Cinderella, the Good Witch, the Bad Witch, Superman, Batman, the Flintstones, everything. Have you ever noticed that a box of pink Band-Aids is labeled flesh-colored? And have you ever noticed that some of us don't have pink flesh? What, you don't think I bleed and need Band-Aids that match my skin too? Plus, you don't even know what you're talking about. My father said Santa Claus is based on the Bishop St. Nicholas, a dark-skinned man from the Middle East, so shut up and leave Black Santa alone. Everything hushed for a moment. Jenny Wanamaker pushed her hair behind her ear. I mean, like, I didn't say it, my parents did. I stormed home after school, hot to break the news. Just so you know, there's talk around town about Black Santa bringing down civilization. After I calmed down, I discovered a growing admiration and respect for Santa in his new colorized form. The more I pondered, the more I realized Black Santa was some kind of counterculture, cool as the North Pole revolutionary. He hadn't given a fiery speech, hadn't marched, hadn't carried a protest sign, not even broken a sweat. Yet just by existing, he was giving the finger to his enemies. He was challenging norms and making our prejudiced neighbors freak the hell out. Black Santa was my new hero. Mother was always so excited for Christmas morning that she could never sleep on Christmas Eve. She'd stay up all night rearranging gifts under the tree and polishing the silver. I lay in bed, listening to her puttering about before I finally drifted off. That night, I had a vivid dream, one of those dreams that don't seem like a dream. I had gone into the kitchen looking for Mother, but didn't find her. From outside, I heard somebody singing. I looked out the window, and I saw a black Chevy Impala SS 427 swoop down from the sky and land on our roof. I recognized the make and model, as it was just like the one my uncle had recently bought. Suddenly, the refrigerator door swung open, and out came Black Santa, doing the Holly Gully and singing a song that had a funky James Brown backbeat. They call me Santa, the baddest pound for pound. I'm cool, I'm slick, and always wear the crown. Look at here. They call me Saint Nick. I'm coming to your town. And when you see me, you hear me, just watch me break it down. Hey! Man, was he ever dapper. His skin was coal black, making the red of his suit really pop. He did a kind of runway walk, strutting his stuff across the kitchen floor while shamelessly name-dropping. Oh, suit by Frederick Douglass, boots by Nat Turner, cologne by Marcus Garvey. A green sack of goodies hung over his one shoulder and a glistening sword of truth over the other. He handed me the sack, prompting me to open it. I reached in and pulled out the powder blue dress with the puffy sleeves, just like the one I'd been begging Mother about. I reached in again and found a hardbound first edition of the autobiography of Malcolm X. Black Santa gestured for me to open the front cover. The inscription read, "Yes, Ruby, there is a Black Santa Claus," signed El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. Black Santa winked. There was more. The little book of Nina Simone's Big Beauty Secrets, a red and green kente cloth, and front row seats to Harriet Tubman the musical. At the very bottom of the sack was a box of brown, flesh-colored Band-Aids. I placed one on my arm and marveled as it slowly dissolved into my skin like a cocoa-colored sunset. Are these all for me? That depends. Have you been good this year? I think so. Have you questioned authority? Spoken your mind even when it wasn't comfortable, slayed prejudice, elevated the underdog, dismantled systemic racism, and taken back the night? Not quite all of that, no. No matter, my child. You have tried your best, and that is all Black Santa requires. Then he shouted, "Power to the people," before backing up into the fridge and closing the door behind him. From the rooftop, I heard him singing, "I'm cool, I'm slick, and coming to your town." Hee! I ran to the window just in time to see him fly off in a Chevy Impala SS427, up and away, blacker than the night into which he disappeared. On Christmas morning, when I opened my first gift and found the powder blue dress with the puffy sleeves, I included a silent thank you to Black Santa. Bear also found the dress striking and tried to call dibs by laying over it. I had to pry his grimy paws off. Mother hated her sea green silk negligee from father. She grumbled something testy under her breath. She didn't want any more negligees, but would add it to her collection, which now rivaled Zsa Zsa Gabor's. Father barely noticed. He was just happy Christmas was almost over. He gave each of us girls gift certificates to the Bon Marché and signed the card, "Your father, Samuel J. Lovestone." Father had bought those certificates in bulk to give to kin and business connections alike. I guess he added "your father" just in case we had questions about who was Samuel J. Lovestone. After I refused to let Bear have my dress, he lay down in the corner and pouted. Yummy turkey and cornbread dressing awaited him in his bowl, but he refused to eat or even look at anyone. I held out the toys to him. "Look, Bear, see what Santa brought you?" He'd been playing with that ball and chew toy for weeks, and just because the wrapping was off, big deal, the thrill was gone. He glanced at the toys, gave one lick to each, then walked away. Poor Bear. Mother had said he was king of the castle, but Christmas exposed the lie, and the betrayal was simply unforgivable.
I think we should clap it up again for everybody that read. It was beautiful. I don't really know what to say next, or anything. Just thank you all. Right, that resonates so much truth was said tonight. And kind of made me think back years ago with some friends of mine whose father chooses to be unhoused. You know, there's a lot of unhoused people in the city, and that's not a choice. That's a failed society, in my personal opinion. And I attempted to write a piece that reflected kind of the stories that I heard. So I'm gonna do that poem real quick, and then we can all get out of here. It's called "Standing in Rain." And for this piece, I attempted to write what I heard and what somebody who's unhoused might be thinking at that time. So it's called, "Standing in Rain." You could see my pain, stained by rain. Concrete tucks me in while I sleep. Modern day Galileo occasion exile. Lost in the stars. This city's building's tower turned me into a coward. Blocked out hope. I chose dope. I prayed to evaporate, escape fate, fall from tears, fill lakes. Exit the womb, be born again, freed from sin. These tracks cover arms like sleeves, showing scars of suicide. My mind lost to the streets. This angel dust has me dancing on the moon. On the run from the man I once was a man, transformed into a druggie absent definition of family, searching for sanity. Eyes closed to the world floating downstream, these hands yell for help. While this voice stays silent. The world I see defies violence. Its veins filled with rage, youthful generations live within the video game. Shoot or be killed, they shoot at will, living behind unwritten wills. Wandering heaven in search of a restart, that now live in clouds with broken hearts. Portraits painted by chalk, too many I've seen, murder scenes. I still hear mothers sing songs for sons who never live tomorrow. I was told, all I have is today. Yet my soul is caged by yesterdays. I don't have today when I'll die in a day. Society judged me. Society judges me based upon preconceived notions. I'm not a TV. I'm not what you see through a screen. I am me, a book never read, a cover that was judged. A house not a home in the world is my home. These feet can take me anywhere. My mind full of endless opportunities, hung by a noose of addiction. None can see nor hear me. I write words for food. I need money to move. The shelter's full. The hour won't take me. So I stand in the rain looking for change in my life. Pockets full of Abrahams praying for a Benjamin. I remember when I was a better man. I paid attention in class. I almost got my degree. Quit before I was done looking back. I was dumb. The fast cash stole my present, scarred my future. And Mr. Corner, don't let my story go untold. Thank you. I think Rob Levi come up here and close us out.